Once again, instead of posting this video immediately, I ended up having to take my son to his Little League game. So this will be a much calmer, more subdued reaction than it would have been 3 hours ago. United won, Burnley won, Manchester United do United things and throw away another lead late in the game. United don't really have anything to play for in the league right now. They came in sixth place by themselves. They're still in sixth place with no chance of anyone catching them right now. Top four is gone. I think top five is technically still in play because of the tough schedule that Tottenham has. But, really that doesn't mean anything anymore because of, the Premier League team's performance in Europe. Top five is no longer probably going to be or mean a Champions League spot. Really what United should have been doing at this point was picking up as many points as possible while trying to get healthy and rotate, some players that were out back into the team in preparation of the FA Cup final on May 25th. Another thing they should be focusing on, and this is not something I've been talking about a lot, but just, the fans. The fans, I think, they deserve an easy win, a good victory, a nice performance, especially the match-going fans who've been singing their heart out and supporting this team all year and being disappointed left and right. Those fans deserve to have an easy victory and a good time so they can sing their songs and enjoy it. But, it wasn't to be today. Key takeaway, number one, errors kill us again. United didn't lose the match, right? We didn't lose, okay? We didn't drop out of Champions League places, like I said. It doesn't feel like the players have given up on the season either. It feels like they're still playing and fighting for the manager and fighting for the badge. They're showing that desire when they go down to come back. Maybe they're playing for pride at this point and they're trying to show that. But this makes 5 out of 7 matches where United had a lead heading into, the last 5 minutes of, real time or extra time and have ended up not coming away with the victory. And honestly, that's unacceptable, right? There's a mental block with this team where they're unable to see close games out. And I think a lot of that has to do with them not having a settled defense, a settled back four. And I think that leads to a lack of trust in, the players and themselves. And also because things have gone wrong so many times, I think players' heads drop and they start to think here we go again. But that's kind of a mental toughness that they need to develop. And they need to, settle that and change that before the end of this season, let alone going into next season, because, jobs are on the line here. Players may have already been told that they can start looking for new clubs, but at the same time, you're auditioning for your next role and you want to make sure you're setting yourself up for success in the future, and going out there and letting your heads drop and giving up leads and not showing mental toughness, that's not going to be a good look, whether you stay or whether you go. So United need to figure that out going into, the final games of this season, especially going into next season as well. Key takeaway number 2, the players just weren't good enough. Now, I think United did do enough to win, but the players either made the wrong decision at the wrong time, or when they got into those great positions, they just weren't clinical enough. Burnley are probably going down, but I think they're a very good team, and they've played a lot of teams tough recently as well. After they withstood the initial flurry that we came out with in opening 20 minutes, they grew into the game and they started to play around us and through us through the press. And that's what they do. They press high, they keep the ball, they try to play a possession-based game. And while that hasn't worked for them in the Premier League, and you can see why because of the amount of chances that they let us create today, based on the style and how we played against them. United, though, like I said, United did enough, and were threatening most of the match. United had 27 shots to Burnley 17. United had 10 shots on target compared to Burnley 7. which includes the penalty shot, so it was really 6. And then United created 6 big chances, and Burnley only created 2, and again, one of those was a penalty. 6 chances created to 1. We technically dominated in the phase of the game that matters, which is creating goals or creating goal-scoring chances. And United were missing 5, or they missed 5 of those 6 big chances created. I mean, the fans don't want to hear this, but United, even though the style wasn't pretty and it looked ugly at times, it was open again. It was a basketball game, like a lot of people like to say. United dominated in the areas that counted, meaning we created big chances and they didn't. And a team that's more clinical is able to put those chances away and put this game to bed a lot earlier. And if United did have those players, then I think we would have put the game away. The game would have been finished a lot earlier. The fans would have gotten that easy victory they needed. Burnley's heads probably would have dropped a little, or they would have kept playing and come back in because we like to blow leads. But I think that's been United's biggest issue this season. People like to say the style of play isn't sustainable, but if you look, we're putting Rashford, Garnacho, Højlund a little bit, Bruno, Casemiro on the header, McTominay. We're putting these guys in a position to score. They're just not getting it done. And I think, United have done this a lot this season, and they've been let down by individual errors and individual performances. As far as player performance, starting with the goalkeeper, this is a tough one because I thought Onana was great for 85 minutes today. He was immense in the first half, made 3 really big saves, including one of them was a 1-1 with a Burnley striker after he had gotten behind Maguire, who I think played well. And then there was that great reflex save off of a ricocheted header. His distribution was mostly good. He gave the ball away a couple times, but for the most part, he was calm and composed throughout the match. Obviously, he makes a huge mistake at the end. And, I said this last game, his pass to Delo that was intercepted for the goal, that was probably his first big error in 2024. But this was his second one. And it was reminiscent of the penalty he probably should have given away to Wolves in the first match of the season. Look, we probably should have had a penalty as well. The guy's arm was by his side, but Wan-Bissaka's arm wasn't that far away from his side as well. So it's something where you wonder, what's even a penalty anyway these days? But I think the Onana one was a penalty, and it was a big mistake where he's got to figure out that ball's away already. You need to pull up, where if you collide into them, you at least show that you're pulling up and you're not, dropping a double arm bar on an opposing player and giving away a penalty in the 85th minute, which is just silly. As far as the defense, the defense looked all right today, considering we did concede shots, we did concede chances, but Maguire and Casemiro definitely looked more comfortable playing together. They look like they've been practicing at center back together for a week or so now, which is pretty crazy to say. But at least they look good against the lower level teams. Both guys were good on the ball. I think they both stepped into midfield well. Casemiro more to be a passing option, make some interceptions. Maguire was carrying the ball forward, something he's been doing pretty well lately, and trying to get into a box and cause some havoc. Both players played well. I didn't think anything really was on them as far as defensive errors or bad plays. Delo and Wan-Bissaka didn't look quite as good. I don't think they really did anything wrong, but both players looked tired and in need of a rest, and neither of them contributed as much to the match as they normally do. In the midfield, I thought we looked tired as well. Mainu did not have his best game today, and the fans booed when him and Højlund were subbed off, but I thought Mainu looked exhausted at that point. The game was getting stretched and open, and he was having to shuttle up and down the pitch. And I think running back a couple times, he looked a little leggy, a little slow, and I thought it was time for him to come off. Again, he's played more high-intense football than he has in his entire life in the last 6 months. 4 months technically since he's been back, or 5 months, whatever it is. So I understand he doesn't have the conditioning yet at this point. Think of it kind of like the rookie wall when a player goes from college to pro sports in the U.S., especially in the NBA. They go from playing like a 30-game season to an 80-game season. Mainu's never played at such a high intensity before. Eriksson didn't look terrible, but he didn't look great either. He was subbed off, or he should have been subbed off, I thought, when Mainu was subbed off, but he lasted a little longer. He's decent on the ball still, although he didn't look great today. He was turning the ball over a little bit, making bad decisions. He just doesn't have the legs to play that role in the midfield, and he's not our best player in that role moving forward. Bruno's obviously the best 10, and Eriksson is never going to play there in front of him, but he didn't do anything like terrible today. He just showed he's not great. Maybe it's a lack of chemistry with the teammates from not playing, but it looked like there was a lot of mistakes today. Bruno, on the other hand, I thought he was good today. He was all over the pitch as usual and probably should have had at least 2 assists. But we did see that Hollywood ball start to creep back into his game today, which makes me a little bit nervous. I know it's because he wants to win so badly and he cares so badly, but I love the control that he showed in the last 2 matches, and I don't want him to go back to old habits of trying to win the game on every single pass and trying to play that killer ball. But I think he was still very good today. As far as the attack goes, I don't think Højlund was great today. I think he's still trying to find his rhythm after that injury kind of knocked him out of form, and he didn't play for a while after he was on that great historic goal scoring run. He doesn't get a ton of service still. He didn't get a lot today, but his hold up play wasn't great. He was battling. They were fouling him a lot, but for such a big, strong guy, I'd like to see him do a better job of holding defenders off and bringing them in, bringing the other players into play. But he did draw a couple fouls that allowed us to get up the pitch. I'm pretty sure he was subbed early just because we want to keep him healthy going into the stretch. There's a rumor that Martial may be back, along with Mount, who was back today. Luke Shaw and Varane and Martinez. There's a rumor that they're all back this week and potentially options for Crystal Palace and definitely moving forward. And I think we just want to keep Højlund as fresh as possible. So if we do want to mix in a Martial or, Rashford when he's back and kind of keep everyone fresh and going hard, we're not getting anyone any muscle injuries where they have to miss the FA Cup final. I thought that Garnacho was pretty good today. Again, he ran the whole match. He never gave up. He did look a little selfish at times, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world for a forward. I think he's a talented guy. He believes in himself. I do think as a team we need to be a little bit better at, spreading the ball around and looking to play easy passes and trying to create for other people. Because like in any sport, like in basketball especially, and definitely in this sport, when you know that if you get someone else a goal, they're going to look for you later on, you're just more likely to make the better decision and be selfless rather than being selfish. And I think that, Garnacho, even though he is a good player and a great talent, I think he does have to, maybe look a little bit more for his teammates in the final third and not look to take everything on himself. But he did put in a shift today, and I got really no complaints against Garnacho except for that. I thought Antony was a contender for man of the match. Honestly, I probably would have said Onana if he didn't give away that penalty. I think it's between Antony and Bruno now, and then maybe Casemiro and Maguire also deserve a little bit of love. But I thought, Antony took a lot of stick, and rightfully so this week. He wasn't good in the He wasn't good against Coventry. He didn't really do anything against Sheffield. But today he really showed all of his best qualities. He was decisive on the ball in the final third. He looked to make good passes. He was playing 1-2s. He was looking to play teammates in. He wasn't as predictable, just looking to get the ball on his left foot and then try to curl one in. They did get him a shot early off of a corner play, training ground, a training ground set piece where they took a corner and the ball ended up to him, and he kind of didn't bend it, or he bent it too much, or didn't go as far to the corner as he could have. And, that kind of set the tone where he got touches early, but he did play Casemiro in, and Casemiro played the ball across to McTominay, and McTominay, their player, Darragh O'Shea, was able to get a nice block in. McTominay wasn't able to score there. But he did look like he was good today. And he put in a shift defensively like he always does. He got a lot of good tackles. He was able to hold the ball when we needed him, and he looked a little bit confident today. He looked like the player we bought, not the player who, didn't play well, kind of succumbed to the pressure and, the issues that he had off the field, back home this year. But he did show that he does have, the abilities to play, I think, in the Premier League at least, even if it's not at United level. As far as the subs, McTominay didn't do much. He got a few chances in the box and then he went off injured. And honestly, based on his reaction, it looks like he's done for the season, which is kind of sad because he's been a good option for us off the bench. And he probably pushed himself today because we didn't have any options and he got himself injured, which is, very sad considering how great he's been in certain situations, providing us a goal late. Ahmad, he played pretty well when he came off the bench. I know a lot of people wanted him to start, but he didn't play, his best match when he came in. To be fair, he came on as a striker, played a lot centrally. We didn't really have a striker. I think Bruno played false nine. They rotated. Probably not the best place to judge him, although I know he can play a little bit as a number 10. But I thought he did well. He was a threat. He was good on the ball. He played 1-2s with a lot of players, similar to how Antony did. And he also had a good work rate tracking back on defense. So, he didn't do anything to say he shouldn't play more, but he didn't come in and light it up as much as people might have expected him to. Amrabat came on and immediately face planted. I mean, this guy does not look United quality. I thought this guy was going to be a great, transformative signing, but things just haven't worked out as is. And, I think the loan needs to end and he goes back to Fiorentina. I don't know if he's not in shape or he got injured and he didn't have a preseason, but this guy does not look like he's, Premier League quality. And then Mason Mount came on after McTominay got injured and he ran around and, got stuck in and tried to make a couple tackles, but didn't really do much from there. Look, as far as the manager goes, I think United did do enough to win this match. Like I said, they created 6 big chances and they ended up missing 5 of them. It's not great the way Burnley was able to play through our press and around us. And, it doesn't look good because they're such a, lower level Premier League team at the moment. But if you look at our team, the back 4 is stitched together and the midfield completely lacks any kind of bite. And it's very slow. I think if we shore up the back 4 and add some energetic, ball-winning midfielders, people who can run around and do have some bite, then I think this team could be very dangerous in the press, and it would be a lot harder for teams to kind of break on us and create those big chances and stretch the game. At the same time, though, we do lack a lot of control, I think partially because of how our defense and midfield is set up right now and who the players are playing there. But it's also a reflection of the style that the manager chose, when he chose to build this team around Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. Now, you can make an argument that any team that creates that many chances should definitely win the game, and it's on the players to do so. But you do have to hold the manager accountable for the way we continue to capitulate at the end of games. And this is not something that, I know the players need to have a little bit more leadership and a little bit more grit about them, but the manager should be focusing on that as well, considering that it has happened so many times. And a lot of it has to do because of how helter-skelter his style is, so he should be at least planning for those contingencies where, hey, we go up in the last minute or the last 5 minutes or the 10 minutes. This is what we're going to do to hold the lead if we suddenly become under pressure. This is something we handled very well last year, and I know a lot of it has to do with the personnel, but it should be something that we should be able to imprint on these players this year as well, regardless of who's playing there. And again, trust me, I'm not someone who is saying, United should beat everyone, even with, 3 healthy defenders, and one of them is actually injured and 2 of them look like they're, exhausted. I do think that, there are extenuating circumstances to how we played this year, but at the same time, conceding goals to lose a lead 5 out of the last 7 games, that's unacceptable. So moving forward, United play Crystal Palace a week from Monday after what is probably a long-needed break after a rare busy period, in the new year. Crystal Palace aren't pushovers, though. They did beat Liverpool the other day. They've also beaten Newcastle and West Ham recently, and they drew to Fulham today. But they've been, playing pretty well under their new manager. After that, United play Arsenal, and then Newcastle, and then Brighton to end the season. Those last 3 games particularly could be tough. So I really hope that United spend this time, especially this break this week, getting people healthy, rotating some of those injured players back in, putting together a more consistent back four, and then just trying to pick up as many points as possible with a focus on getting healthy and fit and in form for that FA Cup final. We already ruined Liverpool's season. Let's take a moment of silence for their season, their title hopes. Nah, I'm just kidding. But let's ruin part of Manchester City's season. Maybe Arsenal will win the league, and then we can, go into the FA Cup final with a chance to, make sure that Manchester City finishes trophyless this year, the same way we ruined, Klopp's farewell quadruple tour. I honestly don't care whether we're in Europe or not at this point. I'd like us to get as many points as possible. We're 4 points off our worst Premier League finish. So if, Ten Hag is able to get 5 points in these last 4 matches, then he, escapes our worst finish ever, which I'm sure he's, happy to do and not go into the history books that way. He was the manager with the most points after his first season in the Premier League, other than Pep Guardiola, and he probably doesn't want to be on the other end of the spectrum and have the worst in United history, or at least in the Premier League. So yeah, I just want to beat Man City and win the FA Cup at this point. I know it's a long shot, but that's what I'm holding out for. Yeah, I honestly don't know what to say anymore. Drop a comment about who you think was the best player today or man of the match. Let me know if you should upgrade Old Trafford or we should build a brand new stadium. Or if you're still listening at this point, do you think our current system and style of play would be more successful with better players? Or should we play a different system that more suits the players that we have? Honestly, I think we perform better with better players who make better decisions and are more clinical. You look at Klopp, he's been allowed to remake his roster twice. You look at Pep, he's bought and sold every position almost 2-3 times over to make himself more successful. I think it makes sense to bring in players that fit the manager's vision, but that might just be me. But whatever, let me know your thoughts. It's hard to argue the other point when we have days like this, but I still think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe it's not this season, but if we have a good summer, knock on wood, we can recover some of the form and the spark that we had last year and make another run. But like I said, get in there. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and up the Reds.